We're going to take a quick look at how to repair a Super Nintendo system. So I recently picked up this original Super Nintendo console right here at a flea market, and the guy who was selling them was, most of his consoles were in pretty bad shape. They were kind of all in boxes and dirty, and a lot of them were cracked and missing pieces, and so I picked this one up. I actually got this one and a few other things, including a controller and all that, for less than $25. So, you know, I pretty much got this for a steal, and it was worth it just, you know, seeing if I could fix it. So, when I got home, I decided to throw a cartridge in it. And so, see here, let me go ahead and turn it on. And as you can see, the light on the console turns on. But I'm getting this kind of black screen with these wavy lines in it. So we're going to open this thing up and see if we can take a look at it and see if we can figure out what's causing this to happen. Alright, now that we've got the console kind of over here at the desk where we can work on it, in order to take this thing apart, we're going to need a special screwdriver bit. And so you'll see this bit right here. Let me see if I can get the camera to focus. That's the type of bit that we're going to need. It is a special bit that you're going to have to order online. This particular size is a 4.5 millimeter bit. You can order these on Amazon. They're called like gaming screwdriver bits. And as you can see, the screws right here are a special type of screw. And so there's about 6 of them that are going to be on the bottom of the Super Nintendo console. And you can see that once you take those things off on these 6 holes here, then you're all good to go. You can see there's some scratching here, not sure what happened, but once you get those 6 screws off, then you can go ahead and you can flip over the console, and you should just be able to pop the top off, just like this. Alright, so once you have the top off, we want to kind of just look at the inside of this thing, and usually the inside will give you a good indication as to how good of a shape it's in, you know, how somebody kept it, and you can see there is quite a bit of corrosion. Let me get under some better light here. This really right here is our main concern. This is the pin connector. This is where the cartridge sits down on, and we want to make sure that that is in good shape. And as you can see, we got a little bit of corrosion in there, so that could very well be it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clean this, and then we're going to stick it back in, and then pretty much take a look at seeing if this thing can work. So to get to this, pretty much what we need to do is we need to take this eject button out. So usually all you do is you can just basically pull this up and out. Sometimes it can be a little tricky, especially with one hand. Just like to slide it out here. Alright, so I'm going to set that aside, make sure that you keep the spring, because you need that when you put it back together. So really, to get to this, to take this thing off, we're going to disconnect this screw right over here, and then this screw right over here. They're 2 silver screws, so I'm going to go ahead and take those off now. Okay, so I've gotten this thing taken apart. I just wanted to go over what I needed to do to take everything off. The 62 pin connector sat here. There's 2 screws. These are silver screws on both sides. Those have to be removed. And then you can just pull this thing right up and out. And again, it just sits right back down on it. Make sure that you mark the front and back of this so that you know how this goes in, because this can go in the wrong way and that will cause some issues with your system. The other thing that I had to take off was this heat shield. It's a shield that just sits actually right on the front here. And there's 2 gold screws, one on each side here, that has to come off. And then before you can take that off, you have the little power switch over here, and there's going to be 2 gold switches on this too. That's pretty easy to take off. Once you do that, you're able to pop off this 62-pin connector, and as you can see, this thing is in pretty bad shape. There's some corrosion going on in there, some crumbs and little hairs and such. And then when you look at the connectors down there on the board, you're going to see that that's in pretty bad shape too. So we're going to go ahead and try and clean this up and see if we can get this thing started. Alright, so now I'm at the point where I'm going to go ahead and clean this connector here. And I just wanted to kind of let you guys know how I'm doing this. What I like to do is I like to take a toothbrush, just take an old toothbrush, and then I like to take a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Alright, and I like to take the toothbrush and the rubbing alcohol, and basically I'll dip my toothbrush in there, then I'll kind of brush it off with a napkin a little bit, get some of the alcohol off of it so it doesn't drip all over the place. And then what I like to do is I like to just take my toothbrush and then scrub my 62-pin connector here. Alright, I like to scrub it down really good, front and back. Any little spots where you see a little bit of green, like corrosion, you want to make sure that you get in there and that you get all that out. And then you want to do the same thing with your pin connector. So you want to take this thing, you want to scrub down in there and inside, then you can also flip it upside down and scrub in there as well. And then once we do that, we'll be back in a second and we'll go ahead and we'll start putting this thing back together and then get to testing it. Okay, so we finally cleaned everything on the inside of this Super Nintendo out. It's looking pretty good on the inside there. Down in there, see if we can see that. We got everything cleaned out, we scrubbed everything down, then I went ahead and I just basically put it back together, and you can just put it back together in pretty much the same order that you take it apart. And then the last part, of course, is these 6 screws on the back here. So once you get those put back in together, then everything should be right back to normal. And so let's go ahead and try hooking this thing up and see what we've got. Alright, so I'm just going to unhook my Super Nintendo Mini right here. And it uses the same power and AV cords. So I can just plug it up to the same ones. So let's go ahead and get this together. Alright, and then the AV cord. Alright, so we got those in. Okay, let's go ahead and throw a game in there. Press that down. Let's power this thing up and see what happens now. Remember that before we had the light on, but we were getting kind of black and purple vertical lines. Let's go ahead and turn this on. And there we go. It's looking pretty good. So let's see. And it's looking good. Everything looks good. Colors look good. Seems to be working fine there. So that is how you pretty much repair a non-working Super Nintendo. Of course, there's a few different reasons why it might not be working, but you know, you just want to go through and troubleshoot each. Make sure that you have power first of all. If you have power, then usually it's a connection issue between the console and the game. And you know, cleaning it most times resolves it. Sometimes you have to change out that pin connector. If you do have to change out the pin connector, unfortunately there's not replacements that are currently made for it, so you'll have to go on eBay or something and search for the 62-pin connector for the Super Nintendo and see if you can find one. But otherwise, that is it. You know, comment right below the video if you have any questions or anything like that. And thanks for watching.